Hi everyone, welcome to Slice of Life. My name is Dabney. I'm the adult librarian at the Twin Lakes Library System, and I use they, them pronouns. For today's episode, we're going to be continuing the series of manga you can binge, and I'm going to be talking about sports manga today. So a little bit of background about me. I actually don't like to watch sports, but I really love sports manga and sports anime. I did play sports in high school, which some of my most embarrassing moments were playing sports. I'm not very athletic, but I do really admire athletes and, think they're great. But for me, I got into sports manga and anime from watching the anime Free, which is about a boys' high school swim club. So it's about kind of 5 boys in particular. So the main character is Haruka Nanase, and when he was younger, he was on a swim team with his friends Makoto, Nagisa, and Rin, and then Rin ends up going to Australia to train in swimming because he wants to be like an Olympic level swimmer like his father was. And so now the boys are in high school, and Nagisa has just started at the same school as Haruka and Makoto, and he is determined that they are going to get the swim team back together. He wants them to form a swim club at their high school and start swimming again. And so they do. They end up recruiting a new guy named Ray, and they get a faculty advisor, and they decide to start out their swim club. And meanwhile, they find out that Rin has come back to Japan and is at a different high school, and he's like completely different from the kid that they grew up with. Like, he's very mean. And doesn't want to be friends with them, and they're all kind of like, struggling to understand like what happened to him, and of course still like wanting to be friends with him, but just not understanding where he's at as a person. So I got very invested in the anime just because of the characters. Like, I really love all of them. I really like their relationships and learning about their backstory. And I would say the anime is split pretty evenly between like swimming and drama. And I like that. So you do get like lots about them kind of learning to swim and building up their skills and strengths and competing with other schools. And on the other side, you get like all of the relationship drama, and it's great. It's really wonderful. So we have there's the first season and the second season, Eternal Summer, and then the third season is about them in college, and then there's also some movies, and we have all that in our collection. You can check it out and become a fan like me. Sadly, there's not like a manga adaptation, and the anime is based on some light novels, which, as far as I know, have not been published in English. Anyways, so that was my entry point into coming to love sports anime. My second love is definitely Haikyuu. This is about a boys' high school volleyball team, and I'm just going to read you the summary from the back and then talk about it a little bit. So, ever since he saw the legendary player known as the Little Giant compete at the National Volleyball Finals, Shoyo Hinata has been aiming to be the best volleyball player ever. Who says you need to be tall to play volleyball when you can jump higher than anyone else? After losing his first and last volleyball match against Tobio Kageyama, the king of the court, Shoyo Hinata wants to become his rival after graduating middle school. But what happens when the guy he wants to defeat ends up being his teammate? So this is Shoyo Hinata, and this is Tobio Kageyama. And oh my gosh, this manga is so great. It just ended last summer, so it ended with 45 volumes. We have 41 currently in our collection, and then the next 4 are being published throughout this year, and so we'll get them as they become available. There's also an anime, so we have the first 3 seasons of the anime in our collection. You can check them out. And I just, I love this so much. I love these two, they're rivals, and they start out very much like, oh, I'm gonna be better than you, and they're like completely obsessed with volleyball. I feel like this series is like 80% volleyball, 20%, whatever else. Like, it is very much focused on the players, on them, like, they're pretty much always like either in practice or they're playing games, whether that's like official games or they're kind of doing some practice games with other teams. It's just volleyball all the time. And you know what? I still like really, really love it, even though my personal experiences with volleyball were like scarred me for life. But yeah, I just love the characters and the way they interact, and I love their team. It's really fun. I love, the teacher they have as their advisor and their coach, and I love the other teams as well. And I think that's one thing that really makes me feel good when I'm reading the manga is that they have these rival teams they're playing against, but no one is really like nasty. No one really trash talks. Like, everyone is there to compete and to do their best. And there's one team that was kind of shady, but other than that, like, they're all there to kind of like give their all, play the best game that they can, and have a good time doing that. And so, like, the people they play against end up becoming like their friends even, and they cheer them on when they're playing games. And so there's just like a really positive like environment within the manga, and then I just feel that the skill level that they're competing at and the way that they develop their skills and talents throughout the story, it feels very realistic. It doesn't seem like they're suddenly way better than they were at the beginning. Like, it all makes sense. It's all like there's a good pace to it. It feels very believable, and I like that a lot. But yeah, these two are just ridiculous. They're very funny. That's another thing I like about this manga. It's pretty funny. It doesn't ever really get, I don't know, sometimes you read things and they kind of like throw in these like super angsty storylines, and that doesn't really happen in this. But you do get to know all the characters really well, and yeah, I love it. I can't recommend it enough. It's so engaging, and it taught me a lot about volleyball that I didn't know. So it's great. My other one is Kuroko's Basketball. So this has 30 volumes, and I'll read you the summary. So, Tetsuya Kuroko doesn't stand out much. In fact, he's so plain that people hardly ever notice when he's around. Though he's just as unremarkable on the basketball court, that's where his plainness gives him an unexpected edge, one that lets him execute awesome moves without others noticing. Alright, so this one I have not read very far into the manga. Like, this might be as far as I got, and I haven't watched very much of the anime, and that's just because when I originally picked it up, like, had a lot going on and didn't have the time to really get invested. So I am still gonna get into it one of these days. The one thing I think that's kind of interesting, funny, whatever about this series is, okay, so you've got Kuroko. You see he's got like the blue hair. So when he was in middle school, he was on this like super famous boys basketball team, and it was called the Generation of Miracles. And so like the five, main players on that team they're all like really phenomenal players, and they all had like special skills that were like unique to them, and they also have unique hair colors. So I think there's like green and yellow and red and blue and I don't know, like really distinctive hair color. So I don't know, that's just funny to me. Whatever. It's a anime main character thing. So anyways, after middle school, they kind of went off to like different high schools, including Kuroko, who was like the phantom sixth player on their team, because his whole like skill is being like unnoticed and invisible on the court. So he's just started at a new high school and meets a transfer student from America, Taiga Kagami, and so they end up on the basketball team and kind of like working together. And Kagami like ends up meeting, I think, one of the guys from like the Generation of Miracles, and is immediately like, okay, I have to beat this person. And then he kind of finds out more about that team and decides that he's going to become the best player in Japan and beat all of them. And Kuroko's like, I'm going to help you out to do that. So that's the story. The one thing that's kind of like a little weird to me is just that, the Generation of Miracle players in Kuroko, they have these special skills that are honestly not realistic. They kind of feel like some kind of magical type of deal. So to me, that kind of, is a little like, all right, okay. Anyways, that's how it's kind of different than like the other ones, is that it sort of has that like these people are too good to be true element. But like I said, I didn't get very far into it, but I will someday. I know it's super popular, lots of people love it, so I'm going to get back to it. My other one is Welcome to the Ballrooms. This has 10 volumes, and I will say that all these series I've talked about are rated T for teen, and I'll read you the summary of this. Feckless high school student Tatara Fujita wants to be good at something, anything. Unfortunately, he's about as average as a slouchy teen can be. The local bullies know this and make it a habit to hit him up for cash. But all that changes when the debonair Kanami Sengoku sends them packing. Sengoku's not the neighborhood watch, though. He's a professional ballroom dancer, and once Tatara Fujita gets pulled into the world of ballroom, his life will never be the same. So, this one, I've read all the volumes that have been published in English so far, and I haven't watched the anime yet. We don't have it in our collection, by the way. And did I mention that Kuroko's Basketball had an anime? I can't remember, but it does have an anime that we also don't have in the collection. Anyways, Welcome to Ballroom. Again, like, I don't watch ballroom dancing. I'm not a dancer at all, but I do really enjoy that story, particularly because, the main character is got kind of this underdog story of like wanting to find something that he's good at, and he gets started in ballroom dancing even though he's getting into it kind of late, because a lot of like competitors have been trained since childhood, so he's coming in as a high school student and like learning all about this world he didn't even know existed, and so it's really cool to read his journey and get to know about him and about the other dancers, and to watch his skill level continue to rise as he practices and competes. And yeah, it's really really great. Like all the characters have some like really unique stories, particularly Volume 10 when you get to learn about one of like the older pro dancers and kind of like his backstory. It was like that one was tough. It was pretty sad, but I think this is another one that um, the main focus is on dancing. So I'd say maybe like 70% dance, 30% drama. Um, and I also like that, you know, I don't know, there's just with like all of these, I feel like from like what I've read so far, um, there's not really like any romance plot, and there's lots of like mutual respect between like in the different series, like between the dancers, between the players, you know, between like the main characters and their rivals or their competition. I feel like there's not really like a lot of negativity. It's a pretty positive environment of like people trying to like encourage each other, build each other up, and to become like the best that they can be. And that's just a really great message. And I wish like everyone would be like that in real life. Um, so yeah, I those are my recommendations for like sports manga. Those are what we have in our collection. If you have any recommendations for us, if you're like, hey, what about this or that, just let us know. And I hope y'all have a great weekend. Talk to you next time. Bye.